Welcome to Spacious Creative. I am Cindy Ingram.
And I am Heather Doyle Fraser. And in this podcast, we're exploring the process and practice of creativity, but with the foundation in compassion.
In this limited series, we'll dive into how creative expression shows up in our lives, from childhood inspirations to the challenges of perfectionism and everything in between.
Whether you're reconnecting with your inner child or reimagining your creative identity and how you can harness more creativity in your life, Spacious Creative is here to inspire and support your journey.
Hello, everyone. We're back for another podcast episode. Hi, Heather.
Hello, Cindy.
Okay, so last week we were talking about, I shared the story of our trip to Michigan and how we saw all the statues or all the sculptures of Bacon, and how I was kind of blown away by that. And when I first started making art again after a long time, well, I think I've probably always thought this, that every time I sit down to make art, that I have to create something brand new. And it has to be new and it has to be different. And that really kept me stuck for a long time. But when I started to look at like all the artists in the world, even authors and artists, like they are all working on like the same type of thing. Like, you know, you look at Mark Rothko and it's just all color field paintings. You look at Jackson Pollock and most of his work is splatter paintings. And like, I don't know why I go to abstract expressionism, but like in most cases, artists are sort of responding to the work they made before and kind of really exploring one idea and taking it lots of different ways. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. I mean, look at Monet.
Yeah.
Same thing in different light, the same, you know, like so many different things like that. That was a long, long time ago. Yeah. I mean, and writers do that too. They have, you know, certain types of stories they like to tell. And sometimes they're very different things. But I mean, you know, like often at least a few of their books are if they have written more than one, kind of hover in a similar area. And even if they don't, if you have, you know, writers who really are moving among different genres or something like that, there are unifying themes I think you still see even among the genres. Like, for instance, Elizabeth Gilbert always is going to have some strong women characters. That's just going to be, regardless of if she's writing, you know, The Signature of All Things, where it's historical fiction, or you know, she's The City of Girls, which is, you know, like still in this, I mean, in still historical fiction, but not like history. And then her memoir, you know, like her memoirs, she's the strong woman character in those books. So I think that even when authors are switching genres, they still have some unifying themes that they're working on across all of their work. Yeah. And one of the conversations we had when we were in Michigan together, obviously we were talking about all the different art we saw, and we could tell, oh, this is the person we saw downstairs, you know, like one of the galleries we went to was a really large gallery, multi-floor.
Huge.
And it was just kind of this winding, amazing, you know, experience, because
and the art was like layered of like four high on the wall.
It was like
wild.
more than you could take in, which was really interesting, because we thought, well, we can just come here a few times and we won't even be able to explore everything. But what we noticed is they didn't put all of the artists' work together in one spot. They kind of sprinkled it throughout the whole gallery. And so when we got, that's that same artist we saw upstairs. Or, you know, they not only had paintings, they also had sculpture and some other mediums. So we could really kind of feel that unifying thread throughout all those pieces. And that was really fun, I think. And
Yeah,
that was
it
really
was.
interesting. But at the same time, I was reading a collection of short stories from Barbara Kingsolver, and this was an older collection. It's not brand new. And I hadn't read too many of the stories in the collection at that point, but I noticed like in the second story, there was, well, in the first story that I read, there was an ancillary character, not even really a character, just a mentioned character named Earth, and she made clay pottery. How fitting is
Well, of
that?
course. Of course, that's what Earth is doing.
But then in the next story, she came up again as someone that they met, like that the couple met on the road. They were traveling and selling, she was selling her pottery and jewelry. And I was like, well, surely that's the same character. This is not, there's not two Earths that are making clay pottery and jewelry. She's bringing her into all of these stories. How interesting is that? Because she's not a main character. She doesn't have any real presence other than to just be there and be like almost a foil to what is happening in that at that point in those stories. But it got us talking about how you don't need to create everything new. Everything doesn't have to be new when you're creating. If you feel a connection or a pull to something or some piece of what you're creating, wouldn't it be interesting to bring that into more of your work rather than push it out? I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, because I take this mosaic class. I've taken two, and I'm about to take a third. But there's two teachers, but they say what's the quote that they say? Like basically, what you're creating now is teaching you about what you're going to create next, basically. And so every time you finish something, you're like, I really am not happy with this, or I really learned I can't do this, or whatever. They're like, well, that's now information you can take to your next one. So next time you do try to make something like this, you know what to do differently or whatever. And I'm like, of course, of course, I don't have to like reinvent the wheel every time. Although I still think I have to. It's still a habit I'm breaking. Uh,
I think it would be fun to write, I mean, I'm gonna go towards writing, every time
oh
right
yeah,
now. Um, but I think it would be fun to, do a project where we had like one prompt or one something that you did every day and what would happen if you just used that one thing every day? Um,
yeah,
you would have infinite number of experiences there just because that's how creativity and inspiration and art is. And I think that's where people don't always they don't always realize that
yeah. I
because
think a lot of people think creativity is like the ability to create something new that's never been
totally,
seen
totally,
before.
yeah,
But what creativity actually is that you're making connections between things and you're seeing connections that maybe other people haven't seen, or that connection that you're seeing sparks a thought or a curiosity that then you follow down, that it's never just you're just sitting there and suddenly like the idea to make an iPhone pops in your head. You're like, it was like something had to have prompted
mhm.
that, who are the maker of the iPhone or Apple, I guess. But it comes from like legacies before and creativity before that then they're responding to.
Mhm. This also reminds me, I'm also in a band, I'm a singer, musician.
The ladies of Longford, y'all look it up. Also, the music in the podcast is Heather's
Yeah.
band. Little plug.
Well, I just got done with a big concert weekend at the Dublin Irish Festival, and we did a song that we haven't done in years. I mean, like probably 15 years. It's a song that I used to sing. And my daughter, who is, now in the band too, she's almost 20. I was like, you know what, Eva, you and I should do this song together. I'll do the first verse and then you do like, I'll kind of hand it off and it'll be awesome. And she really liked the song too. And so we listened to and this is like an old traditional kind of Celtic song. So there's been lots of versions of it. We did a version of it, obviously, recorded it in probably 2002 or something like that, a long time ago. And I listened to the recording, and it's so funny because when I sing that song now, I don't even sing it exactly how I sang it on the recording, because when we are working with our art, no matter what it is, we engage with it every time. And when you are a creative person, even if you know, like, okay, this is the structure, this is the format of the song, these are the basic notes, but we're switching it up in terms of the emotionality, what you're bringing to it, your life experience, all of these different things. And when I sing this song now, if you listen to me singing it, you know, at the
Mhm.
festival versus the recording, it is much more complex sounding. It is more nuanced. I'm bringing, 20
Yeah, you're a different
years
person.
of experience to that song that I didn't have the first time that I sang it and recorded it. So even something like that, where we think, oh, that's set, that's how it is. It's not. It's not.
Yeah, you know, it reminds me of I think I watched a reel the other day, and it was about Taylor Swift and her re-recordings of her
Yes.
music.
Yes.
And that's fascinating. But they sound really similar. But what this person was saying was that, the fact that she's going back to her old catalog and having to like relive like a lot of those experiences she was writing about, like the pain she was writing about, that we now have these newer songs that maybe wouldn't exist had she not revisited that. Like, she, like the manuscript, which is in her newest album, like is clearly it's about Jake Gyllenhaal and all the song All Too Well. And like I think there was another one, but it was like, she's having to rethink about all of that stuff, which then makes her feel those emotions, which then now she has to filter through her, life experience. And then now she writes songs about her current feelings about those same situations. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I think the manuscript is like so wonderful. And then like, would it exist had she not had to go through that process of
No,
re-recording? It
no.
surely doesn't exist, because why would you want to go back and like relive the pain of your past? And like, well, I guess I did it too in a memoir, but yeah.
Well, I think that there's a level of understanding that you can bring to that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what art allows us to do, especially when we can revisit some of the either the style or the actual content or whatever it is. When we can revisit that, we can keep that narrative, change the narrative, we can build on the narrative, use it as like a base place, but also bring all of our learning and experience to that. And that makes the ultimate reader, listener, viewer, all of those, the ultimate person who's receiving have, again, a different experience. And we talk about this a lot, how like every time you listen to something, read something, I mean, like you have a different experience because you're a different person when you are, taking that in.
Yeah, I show a lot of art in my programs, obviously, and I've had experiences. I used to be like, oh, I have to have new art every time. If there's someone that was at the last time, then I got to pick new art this time. But then I had an experience last year where I gave a workshop on a Monday or Tuesday, and then I gave the same workshop on Thursday. And it was
Mhm.
same content, same artwork. I was just, doing two different times for people's schedules. And I had happened to have like a pretty traumatic experience on Monday of that week. But on Tuesday, I had a completely different experience with the artwork and a different interpretation, different feeling about it than I had on Thursday, like in the same week. And so then I just was like, oh, I can show the same artwork every week for the rest the rest of the year, and we will never run out of content, because
No.
we're gonna change, we're gonna grow, and you're gonna make new connections. And that one artwork, I've probably shown it 15, 20 times at this point, and I have a different interpretation. It hits me a different way every single time. It's,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I've experienced that with your workshops too. I mean, like some of the art, I mean, I'm currently, I mean, in one of your workshops, and some of the art that you've shown was in your book.
Yeah.
And we spent a long time talking about that specific art. And I mean, for months,
Yep.
not like it was a one-time thing. I mean, like we spent a long time exploring those arts in your book. And when you have shown those same arts in the workshop, I initially see it and I have a feeling of like, oh yay, I know this one. And then all of the sudden it is a totally not even, I mean, like there are, some minor things that are similar. And I will say that when I first look at those arts, those are the things that pop into my head, right? Because that's your previous experience. But then you spend just even a fraction of more time with it. Not, I mean, just, I'm not talking about a long time, like a minute or two more. And then all these new ideas, interpretations, notice even things you observe are different.
Yeah. It's, yeah, to me, the same, the ones I spent all the time writing about, now I look at and I see different things. And there's a few that the one I showed, well, you weren't there last week, but the one I showed last week was originally going to be in the book, but then we couldn't do it because of permission's sake. That was the first time though, I was just like, it was too close to like a really painful moment of really like, I was in pain and I saw that artwork and that the artwork reflected my pain. And now I'm like, I was like, I don't have anything right now. It was really weird, but most of the time.
Yeah.
I was going to go on a tangent and I was like, wait, that's not even about what we're talking about. So I'm going to stop myself on a tangent. Um,
But that happens with books too. I mean, I reread books all the time. Um, and it's about that relationship that I'm, you know, craving at that moment because that book represents a relationship to me. And every time that I mean, I don't reread every single book that I read, but there are certain books that I know I'm going to reread because I've had such a rich experience with it and have connected with it so deeply. And whenever I reread those books, I have a different experience almost every time. And I love that about art, about all facets of art. Yeah, it's the most amazing, wonderful thing to be able to be part of.
Indeed. And I think we all have this experience though, like I think most people, it's with music and with like movies and things like that. They'll like rewatch the same movie and listen to the same song over and over again. But somehow we started talking about like experiencing art instead of creating art. So how does this all relate to the process of creation?
Well, I think that when, I mean, you can't create art without being a person who experiences art. Like
Yes.
you cannot have, you can't be in a vacuum and take in nothing and then create. I mean, I suppose you could, but I don't think it would be as rich of an experience for you
Yeah,
as
I agree. And I work with a lot of art teachers, and art teachers are a very opinionated group of people, and they all have their way of, their view of how art teaching should be. And there's a whole sect of art teachers who believe that you should not show any art to students because that will deaden or influence their what they create, or it will like ruin their creative instinct, and it will change what they create. And every time I hear one of those people, I'm like, no. No,
and
you're wrong.
I mean, they're right in that it will influence them.
Yes.
It will change them and it will
Right.
like you will have an experience of some kind because you saw that or took that in. And so what?
Yeah,
Like I mean,
that's a
that's a
good
good
thing.
thing. That's a good thing. I mean, and if you think they aren't experiencing art outside of a classroom, uh, uh,
Right.
I mean, there's art all around us. It's everywhere. And even if it's, you could, nature is art in my eyes. I mean, like what?
Yeah,
You're constantly taking in stimulus, all constantly. And all of that makes its way into our art.
it
And it's
does.
not a bad thing. It's a good thing because it's filtering through your voice. And I don't just mean like a writing voice. I mean your voice as an artist, however that shows up. And that's what makes us each unique. That's what makes us unique. It's not the content itself, it is our perspective, our lens, how we interpret it. And everything that we take in impacts that.
Yeah. Oh, you know what this reminds me of is the Olympic opening ceremony controversy.
Yeah.
Oh, because artists throughout all of time have always responded to what came before. Either it's, well, I guess the prehistoric people didn't, but maybe actually they did.
They're probably responding to something,
Yeah, because there were like rocks with holes in it with like eyes. Like they were definitely responding to something. But like either they're like using it as inspiration and like riffing off of it, or they're doing like they're intentionally going against what came before to to be subversive or to to have a different viewpoint. Like all artists throughout all time have been doing that, and it is impossible um to not do that. And so the people who are saying that it's like mocking religion, it's like, no, they're just responding to art history. Even like one, it's like they're saying it's not even the Last Supper, but I'm like, clearly there is a little Last Supper influence. I'm like, I can see it, but like it's not. It's about the imagery. It's about the iconic imagery. Like
Mhm.
we're always responding to that.
Always responding.
Yeah.
Even something like there are like a lot of similarities between classical music and heavy metal, like the
Yeah.
structure of those two genres and music. And no one, if you don't know like music theory, if you don't know those things, you would never guess that. They sound so opposite. And yet they have the like structurally, they are very similar.
Oh, now I need to go listen to some examples of that. Note to self: listen to heavy metal.
I mean,
Write it on.
not every single song, but you know what
Right.
I'm saying. As a genre,
Yeah.
um,
Oh, I'm sure there's a YouTube video that puts them side by side.
yes.
Yeah. But even like music, yeah, like there's these, I've seen videos where it's like people are playing the same chords and they sing one song and they just play those same chords and then they're singing a completely different song. And then, they like will do 5 songs with all the same.
You could do an infinite number of songs. G, C,
Yeah.
and D are three basic chords that are in almost every song.
Yeah. But still, like, humans just keep creating and connecting and making new things. And I think that is like fascinating to think of, like the vast number of people in this world and the vast like number of voices, and like every one of us has the ability to create something different because we are like different people inside, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes, I mean, and I think that ties back to that iterative thing because even with our own creations, we are going to have a unique you create something unique off of the same thing if we look at it enough. Like we will absolutely do something different because we're a different person when we're creating it.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk about that. There, one of the biggest fears that a lot of writers have is I'm not going to write something unique or
Yeah.
or someone's already written that better. Why should I even try? Like these are almost every single person that I've ever talked to about writing has these fears about writing. And I'm going to say there aren't like, if you look at the basic ideas of many books, like this is the theme or this is the main message or, like those types of things, there's a lot of universality among I mean, like these
The
stories.
hero's
Yes,
journey, it's like
yes, yes,
over and
yes.
over again.
Right. And yet we're still reading all of those books. We're still experiencing all of those things because each one is unique and we resonate differently. Even if, like two people write basically the same story, it's not going to be the same exact story. It's not going to have the same impact with you because you might not resonate with both of them. Or if you do, you might pull something different out of them. It's all about where you are and your experience in receiving it.
Yeah, I always talk about like the art, and like the art is kind of giving off like an energetic signature, and then you're giving off an energetic signature, and then like the way those two things meet like is is magical, and it will never be the same because the artist and the viewer are never the same at any given moment. So read and listen to art. Listen to art. Listen to music, look at art. Don't be afraid to do that. Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Yeah,
And don't be afraid to write
and
and make art.
there are I will say the one time that I tell people to stop reading something is if they feel like they have to read to get to be able, like they'll say like I need to do more research. I need to do that. I need to,
Yeah.
and depending on what you're writing, you do need to do some research. You do need to do some things like that. Um, and then there's a point at which no, you need now we stop that part and you bring you
Yeah.
enough with the research, enough with that. So it again, there's a lot of paradox in, I think we've talked about that, touched on that a couple times, but you have to be able to hold that lightly enough, like, oh yes, I'm taking this in, I'm experiencing this, and now I've had that experience. Now I'm going to create. I'm taking the baton. It's, like that sort of creative flow interaction.
Yeah. It's like it seems to come from this place of like, I'm not enough
Yeah.
and with what I have.
Yeah.
And I think like one of the number one things with doing any creative endeavor is self-trust, that you believe that you have what it takes to make the thing that you want to make. And we touched on that last week when we were talking about
Yeah.
like the big vision.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, it all comes back to feeling safe enough,
Yeah.
and just safe enough, like not completely, like you don't have to be like, I am totally, absolutely secure in all the things that's probably not going to happen, but enough. I'm safe enough. I feel secure enough right now to be able to handle these thoughts and difficult feelings that come up.
Yeah. Do you think that, have you ever seen a situation where, I know I experienced it with art, where I saw so much good art that I was like, well, there's no way I could ever create good art because I know what good art is. And I experienced a little bit of this when Brian, so I'm answering a question for you because I experienced it at working with you, but it was like, I, I would, I used to, well, I do when I'm in low emotional states, like if I'm going through like a depression or an anxiety spell, like one of the things I do to help me sleep is I listen to Eat Pray Love on Audible. I just kind of, so I don't know how many times I've listened to it at this point, or like, it's just in and out, and I just kind of start it where I left off, whether I slept or, I don't go back to like what I remember. It's just kind of her voice and the story, and her writing is so delicious. And so when I was writing, I was like, there's no way I can be as good as Elizabeth Gilbert. I like that thought would pop in my head. I'm like, it's okay, you don't have to be as good as no, there's not a lot of people as good as Elizabeth Gilbert, but that's the same thing that we were talking about. Like,
Yeah, I mean, who's to say what is as good as?
Right.
I'm using air quotes right now.
Yes.
Literally. Um, because it's all again about that relationship that the listener, reader, viewer is experiencing. I could think that something is the most amazing thing in the whole world, and someone next to me could think it was crap.
Yeah. So there, I mean, that there can be an argument that there is no good or bad, that there just is, just exists.
I mean, there's lots of books that I don't like that I feel, like I thought that was very predictable. I didn't really enjoy
Yeah.
that. I'm not definitely not rereading that again. I may not even finish reading this because I don't read things that I don't find really enjoyable and also that I don't think are really high quality writing wise. And somebody else could think that is the best book I've ever read.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me that where they've given me a book and said, this is the best book I've ever read. And I read it and I think, okay, I'm just that's good for you. I'm not going to argue with you because that's your experience, but definitely not making my top 10 list.
Yeah. And or you go to like the Goodreads reviews and you're just like, it's like 4.5. And then there's all these reviews. And I was like, I hated that. And I have one book I'm thinking of. Carrie Soto is Back. It's the name of the book.
Mm.
So everybody loved that book. And I'm like, all they did was play tennis. They just played tennis and practiced tennis and then played tennis and then practiced tennis. But people loved it. So yeah.
Didn't read that one.
Yeah, don't. You don't need to.
Probably why I didn't read it.
like I don't normally I'll finish the book. I'm like, yeah, that was, it was I didn't love it. I was like, that was fine. That book I just like loathed. And it's just very weird because I love that author. I've read a lot of her books. I've loved them all. Forgot her name right now. She wrote Eleanor Hugo. They're the Seven Wives, Seven
Oh,
Husbands of,
yes. Yeah, I
yeah.
loved that. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Morgan Harper. No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'll think of it in like 3 hours, which
Yeah.
doesn't help me now. Great author, but not the 10. And that was an iteration on idea too, though, because that was a character from another book. She like took
See?
that character out and then like wrote a whole thing about her.
Right.
So that's interesting.
I mean, you see that so much in books, especially like series books, I think, too,
Yeah,
because
oh,
they're
yeah,
ancillary character that, and this goes back to like, does it belong in that piece or not? Like, I mean, sometimes a new story just pops up and you think, oh, I didn't realize this was here, but it can't go here because that's not what this story is about. But it's a really juicy story. So it's got to come out and be its own thing.
yeah,
Um, but if you hadn't allowed that iteration to happen, you would never be able to hear the whole story of that character.
yeah. And it, and then you think about like fan fiction, and you're like,
Yeah.
there's infinite stories about all of about all of this stuff,
And
all told in different.
isn't
Yeah,
that amazing? I love it. I
yeah,
love that people do that.
I do
Ma-
too.
Making the story like part of their experience in a way that nobody else does. And then other people enjoy it too.
Yeah. When I was in high and middle school, there was this girl, and I still feel really guilty about it. She was obsessed with Jonathan Taylor Thomas. He was on the show Home Improvement. Oh, Tim, he was big news when I was his generation. I had a poster of him on my wall, but she was obsessed with Jonathan Taylor Thomas, and so she wrote Home Improvement fan fiction centered on Jonathan Taylor Thomas. And this was the 90s, so it was like people weren't talking about fan fiction, I guess, as much back then because we didn't
Oh,
have the
no,
internet.
you didn't
And
have
so,
access. You didn't
yeah,
have access. Yeah.
we thought she was so weird. And I don't think we ever outwardly said anything about it. But I remember judging her so harshly. But now I'm just like, oh, I feel bad. She was just taking something she loved and spending time with it and like really like immersing herself in it. And That was delightful. And I didn't now I don't think I ever said anything to her. I wasn't the type to do that, but like I judged her so harshly. I'm sorry, Kana, if you're listening.
I
But
mean, one of the, I mean, I a book that I really enjoyed, Fangirl, brought that
oh
back to me by Rainbow Rowell. I thought it was so fascinating that the main character was writing fan fiction and it was included in the story as a way to move the story's narrative forward without being the main story. Brilliant idea. But she had so much fun writing that fan fiction piece that she wrote a trilogy after that on the fan fiction that started in a book entitled Fangirl. Like, how awesome is that? Talk about iteration.
yeah. Oh, books and art. So good. So good. All
I might
right.
reread Fangirl. I might need to reread
I
that.
know. It's been so long. I have read it, but it was a very long time ago. And now I'm like, I don't remember the plot. So, but I remember loving it. And I went on a Rainbow Rowell like kick after that. And I think I read like everything she had written at that point.
I did as well. Yep.
Yeah. But it's probably been 10 or 15 years. So she's written probably a lot more since I went
Yeah,
through that phase.
I haven't read her stuff recently either. So yeah.
I think the last one was not YA that I read. It was, I forgot what it is. Huh, I don't remember. Something else I'll research after, along with heavy metal music. Okay, so have we said everything that we want to say about this topic?
I think so. I think I think what all of this is pointing to is please iterate on your work.
Yeah,
Please iterate on your fun. Please iterate on your whatever you're creating. Try it out. If you've been avoiding that, hey, revisit old stuff. Revisit a doodle. Revisit like a sentence. I don't know. Revisit it all and see what happens.
yeah, yeah. Because I tend to I start a lot of artwork with a wave draw, or like a and
Mhm.
and then I'd be like, oh, I've already done the wave. I shouldn't do it. And then I was like, what am I talking? Stop doing that. Just let yourself make all the waves that you want to make and then see what happens. Maybe that's my your idea of taking the same thing every day. Maybe a wave is mine. Because I also liken my creativity to a wave
Oh yeah.
um
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that would be a
Yep.
good thing to iterate on.
It's a wave or a windy path, one or the other,
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. Because when I first thought of that, I was like, I had just had an idea for a friend's business. She doesn't have a business, but it was an idea for her to create a business. And well, she has a business, but like it was different. And I felt this like intense feeling of like, oh, this is the best idea I've ever had. And I texted her and I was like, do you want this idea I just had for you? Because you can't just throw all your ideas at people. And she didn't answer my question. She like answered another question and just ignored that question. And I was like, but I had all that creative energy like built in my chest and I could feel it. And I was like, I can't get it out. It was like there was no like I needed her to say yes so that I could like get it out.
Mhm.
And yeah, and that's what it felt like, is like the swell of a wave like lifting up. And I was like, I need something to crash against. I needed like an
Yeah.
expression or a release or something. And I didn't get it. It was really intense. So, but that, yeah. And the wave was my best metaphor that I could think of
I
in
do
that
think
moment.
that when we stop that creative flow, we are like, sometimes we are, if we don't give it voice of some kind, whether it's not as just like jotting those things down or whatever it is, or telling somebody else even,
Yeah.
it, it like does create a little mini break in like the flow of that. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. So yeah. I've noticed that with myself too, because I get those types of ideas all the time for people and do the same thing. I'm like, do you want this idea? I would love to tell you this idea. Um, but sometimes I just write it out if they don't answer me.
Yeah, I'm like, I need to get this out. Yeah. And that there was one other thing that reminded me of that I wanted to say about that. Oh, I lost it. Oh, I've been looking up quotes because I'm making this little book with my. I think I mentioned in last time's podcast that when I'm not feeling, or it was one of them, where I'm not feeling like emotionally available to like create something like with intention, I just will glue scraps from my other collages down on pieces of paper. And so I decided to take all of those because I had a bunch at this point and like make them into a book, and I'm going to make it about creativity. But I found this quote and it was like, everybody who's taken a shower hasn't had an idea. It's the people who get out of the shower and do something with the idea that, you know, that's what you need to do. So it's like, we all naturally have it, but it's that taking that step forward to actually put it into the world and make the thing. And we have a program coming up that will help you do that if you're one of those people that have the ideas but are not acting on them.
Yeah.
You can join the Spacious Creative.
And I think there might even be some iterative experiences in there too to help you.
Yes. I, while we were talking, had several ideas for activities we could do for people in the program.
I did too.
So Heather and I are full of ideas. So if you want to experience the expression of our ideas so that you then can take your ideas and make them reality, we start September 4th, and you can register at thespaciouscreative.com, and it will be a magnificent program, I guarantee. Woo! Okay, I think that's it for today.
Yep.
We'll be back next week with more creativity talk. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Spacious Creative. We hope you found inspiration and insights to give you some momentum on your creative journey.
If you're ready to dive deeper, we invite you to register for our 6-week program, The Spacious Creative, Compassionate Practice and Process, starting in September. Sign up at thespaciouscreative.com. We can't wait to connect with you again on our next episode. Until then, trust your creativity and hold your inspiration and yourself with compassion.